Our next segment is going to be the Ask the Doc segment. This is going to be an interesting one. And we're going to come up with a few answers or maybe questions. Not sure.
Some research.
Yeah. So the question was, this is a long-standing question, man. I feel like probably everybody and their mother has gone over this question and everybody has different answers. But the question gets posed to us, do we want to do cardio before we hit the weights or after? And there's maybe some mixed feelings, some mixed emotions. So what do you think, Jim?
Let's roll with it. So I'm going to tilt towards favor of the discussion here. Not saying that I'm in favor of cardio before or after weights. I'm going to just basically bring forth the side that would argue towards doing cardio before the weights. So we'll go through some pros, some cons, and then I'll jump into a study that had come up. So some of the pros, which is exciting, there's going to be an increase in some of the anabolic hormones, such as testosterone and growth hormone, and there's also going to be a nice suppression in cortisol, especially when we see these individuals first thing in the morning getting the workouts in. You get that burst, and it can really set the tone for the rest of the day. It also pre-exhausts certain muscles, so you can use less weight for similar effect. And then some of the cool stuff, because we're working on bodies all day long, and we can appreciate when the joints are properly warmed up. There's also some studies that are showing increase in synovial fluid in the joints. So when we actually get a rehydration on some of these joints, especially the spinal segments, the discs actually, which we covered in the first episode, they rehydrate and get their nutrition primarily through movement. So if we can add a little bit of movement in the form of cardio before the workout, the spine may not be so stiff under load, and maybe your back pain and stuff can kind of work itself out, so to speak, before you get under some of those heavier loads. Of course, it increases core temperature, increases blood flow to the working muscles. It can be looked at as a mild dynamic stretch, and it can be a little moment where it can put your mental focus into the workout that's to come. So as you're sitting there dreading the 5 or 10 minutes or 20 minutes of cardio before your workout, you can kind of put the mind in the right frame of focus for whatever weight training you're going to be doing. Now the cons, we see this a lot too. If you hit a hard, high intensity interval training cardio session before weights, the obvious one is the energy level can decrease, and it can decrease your glycogen stores as well too, which can leave you feeling, quote unquote, I don't want to say weaker, but just not as ready for that. So there might be I would say a little drop in what your strength may be, but like you had, mentioned too, that, you're going to be able to use maybe say lesser weight for a similar effect, but it's all subjective because hard is hard, whether you walk in and just do weights. Whatever your weight you put in my hand, it might be easy, medium difficulty, extremely hard, and you might have that same effect if you just did cardio, but maybe it just, I want to say put blindfolds on, but if I say, okay, Craig, give me something you think, okay, oh, that was easy, go up. But then if I did cardio and you did that same thing to me, maybe that effect feels completely different. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. And I always use the point to my patients, it doesn't matter whether it's 5 or 10 pounds, it matters how the body and how that muscle perceives it.
Right.
So, that intensity of a 10-pound weight after cardio might be substantially greater even than a 20-pound weight if you didn't do the cardio.
Right. Well said. And then a couple other points here. Let's see. So another obvious one, if you're going to go in the gym and hit a good weight training session for legs, I don't suggest that you're doing sprints before, unless again you want to do sprints before the workout and perceive how hard that workout will be now that you're training legs. So if you train hard weight training, pick and choose your cardio. So maybe it's the opposite. So lower body, do an upper body, cardio first. A great suggestion is the ski erg. Concept 2 puts out a machine called the ski erg. It's very upper body driven. It's very core based, but not a lot of legs. And then the other side of it too, if you're doing an upper body weight training day, maybe you could do something, that involves sprints or rowing, etc. So you want to jump into some of the research that we read up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So again, remember guys, we're focusing on cardio before the weight training. So there's something out there that you guys might be able to look up called concurrent training, and it's the term for combining training methods in a single session. So again, we're talking about cardio on the same day and the same workout as weight training, but we're focusing on cardio being performed first. So there was an article of the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, and it was shedding some lights on effects of anabolic hormones. Basically, there were 14 supplement and steroid-free men who volunteered for the study, and they were split into one of two groups depending upon the type of training that they performed first in each session. So one group performed cardio training first, and then followed by their strength training session. And then the other group obviously did the opposite. The participants in this new study were in good shape. They were strong, had decent cardio ability. They were also already experienced in concurrent training, having performed it at a minimum of 3 times a week during the past year. So these are not beginner trainers. The endurance training involved 32 minutes on a treadmill. The athletes performed intervals of 1 minute of moderate intensity running with 2 minutes of a casual jog. The paces they kept were individualized based on specific amount of blood lactate the pace would induce. For these athletes, the paces ranged from a little under 5 miles per hour to a little over 7. So the strength training program was of a hypertrophy nature, comprising of 3 sets of 10 reps at 70% of each participant's 1 rep max, with 1 minute of rest in between sets. So that's pretty standard fare. The exercises included squats, bench presses, leg presses, and lat pull downs. They also did 3 sets of 30 crunches and back extensions with their body weight. So let's fast forward to the results. As it turns out, anabolic hormones like testosterone had a much stronger response when the cardio was done first. Much like the prior study when untrained women that this gentleman had mentioned earlier above, these results indicated that cardio first might be a better approach. And the researchers noted that these results were also in agreement with prior research on men who were experienced only in strength training and who followed a more strength-oriented program. So it's kind of interesting to see on research side of it. This is just one study that kind of favors, hitting cardio first could have a release of all these hormones that we listed and help suppress some of the ones that are usually, elevated in individuals who are stressed, like cortisol.
Yeah, that's interesting because I don't know if you would think of it that way, but
Right.
It's hard to argue blood levels, right?
No, I know. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the opposite end, where you might want to do the weights first, followed by cardio.
Right.
In the world of the pros on that, apparently a study has shown, this is a University of Tokyo study, and it's an older study, but it's still out there. It increased fat burning in the first 15 minutes of your cardio session quite a bit. And they were showing that you lose a lot more fat versus if you did the cardio by itself or first. So that first 15 minutes of the cardio, you're cooking more fat. And I'm sure that goes to the fact that your glycogen levels are already a bit depleted from the training and you get right into that fat burning mode. So I'm pretty sure that that's what that is. Obviously, again, just like you talked about with the con, you're going to have a little bit of increased energy. Cardio depletes me. I know that if I'm out there and I'm doing, it's one thing to do a steady state walk or something like that. Maybe it's not such a big deal, but if I'm going to do something like a high intensity interval training or a step mill, an arc trainer, a rower, it's going to be really hard for me to then go out and perform that exercise. And here's the key, with good form while we're lifting, because sometimes you're just not going to have that energy, in certain of the cardio exercises that we may choose are going to actually tax our stability muscles, while running or even walking on the treadmill might not necessarily tax my bicep. It's going to tax my stability muscles that are going to keep me upright and hold me upright. So I may lose that form and I may see some of that breakdown. In regards to the upper versus lower, you can, by doing the exercise first, you can easily switch. So let's say I wanted to do a cardio after a leg training. I could do that upper, and I have that choice, and I could go do as hard as I want for the weight training and then pick something that might be on the opposite end of the body that I could get my cardio from. And in one study, I guess 10 weeks of resistance training had increased the resting metabolic rate by 7%. Wow. So that those people had actually reduced their fat weight by almost 4 pounds in 10 weeks. So that's pretty good. I mean, 4 pounds doesn't sound like a lot, but true fat loss of that amount is pretty intense. And again, we're comparing cardio pre, cardio post. So it's not that the other group wasn't doing anything. This is 4 pounds additional beyond that. Ultimately, I think the idea here is that we don't want to skip it altogether. If you do the weight training first, there is that con of all right, I'm tired. I'm done.
It's
Day's
easy to
over.
talk yourself out
Yeah,
of.
it
Yeah.
really is. I mean, okay, I did my weights. And I'm a bodybuilder, like we said in our last episode. Sometimes bodybuilders, we hate cardio. That's not the fun part. We like moving weights. We like being in the gym. We like getting, as Otto says, we like getting to the pump.
We want to get pumped.
Yes. So, we do have the tendency to maybe want to skip the cardio if we put it second. On a con, as far as the weight training first, it's not going to improve your cardio performance as well as doing the cardio first. So the cardiovascular health is better. You get a better response in cardiovascular health improvement by doing that cardio first. That if you do the cardio after, you might get some really good fat burning, but I don't know that you're going to get that same cardiovascular benefit, if that's part of what you need to train.
Well, then it comes back to goals,
Right.
kind of segueing into, I know we were going to talk about, cardio on maybe a non-weight training day. What is your current training goals? If you're trying to lose fat, we see that there's some research that shows it to be one way. If you're trying to get stronger and maybe cardio isn't such a priority at the current, current point in your training cycle, well, then you can do it another way. But then, the third way I feel like is you could train weights on a certain day and then you could do your cardio on a different day if your schedule allowed, or could you do weight training and cardio training completely separate times of the day?
Yeah, and when it comes down to personal preference and 15, 20 years worth of competitive experience for me, that's what I prefer. I have a gym in my basement where I have a treadmill, an arc trainer, a step mill, and a Peloton bike, and I like to go get my cardio done first thing in the morning, and it doesn't matter what style it is. I usually do it fasted, which is maybe a topic for another time.
But a good topic too.
Yeah. So I do the cardio first thing in the morning, and then usually I train with weights in the afternoon. I try to actually split up my chiropractic day because then I can go clear my head again. We talked about the mindset, clear my head again, get a nice shower, go back and treat patients. So for me, that seems to work best. And at that point, I feel like I can give the best effort at both.
Yeah.
And I used to do, way back when I was first getting into perhaps thinking about competing, I did the Body for Life training with Bill Phillips, the good old EAS, Myoplex and all that fun stuff. I did his training methods, even though I felt like I was peeling back from maybe a more advanced level. I did, and they had recommended an alternating schedule where it was 3 days a week cardio, 3 days a week of weight training, and you'd alternate it. You do upper body, then cardio, then lower body, then cardio, then upper body, then
Those were separate days?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there were 6 separate days, and then you take Sundays off. And I was actually peeling back on the numbers of days I was training with weights, adding the cardio in, and I got in great shape. So I do believe that the best probably answer, and again, everybody has different time constraints, so we understand sometimes you may not have anything at your house that you can do cardio with. And if you live in Minnesota or North Dakota and it's snowing 6 out of 12 months, you're probably not going to be walking around the block, right?
Right.
But if you have the time, I think that might be the best method.
Just stagger them. Yeah. That's interesting. And I've been kind of guilty of not finding rest days. And that's kind of another topic that, you can schedule your weights, you can schedule your cardio sessions, but your body really repairs itself under rest. So I don't think that a rest day needs to be you just sitting on a couch all day long, but finding ways to move throughout the day is super important. Personally, I love hitting sprints before I hit weights because I feel, back to the synovial fluid in the joints, I 100% feel different after I hit a couple, intense bouts of sprints, coming back down, sprints, coming back down. The other thing we didn't talk about is nervous system. Like, it almost awakens my nervous system to be ready for whatever weights I put in my hands or on my back. And so that's what I've been doing. But for years, I did it with just like the bodybuilding. And then we kind of warm up through the movements that we're doing. And then cardio was an option at the end of the workout. It was so easy to be like, oh, I'll just do it later. Later came, maybe I did, maybe I didn't do the cardio. So it was easy to talk myself out of. But when I do it first, it's done. I enjoy weight training. I don't always enjoy the cardio. So if I knock that out first, then I know the rest of the work, I don't want to say is downhill, but I know that I'm getting into the part that I enjoy.
The hard part's done, right?
And then, you kind of by default start to enjoy. It's a love-hate, you know, and
Right.
the sprints I'm not good at, but I'm getting better. So you can kind of see that, you know, we like training in realms that we're good at, but, you know, if we can start getting better at the things that kind of, you know, I don't want to say scare us, but they become easier, and then you get better at everything else too. So
Going a little bit outside of your own comfort zone
Yes.
is gonna improve your body.
you always
overall.
know how to finish my thoughts. We must be related.
Something. So we're gonna take a little bit break. We're gonna come back with our final thoughts, and we'll be right back.